What we're going to do is talk about telescopes. I'm not going to recommend brands or anything. We're just going to go over first, what are you interested in? Everybody has their own particular interests. Everyone has their own particular needs. Considerations, first thing is, there are no right or wrong answers. This is mostly my opinion. I've been doing this for a long time. I build telescopes and make them so I have a good sense of how they work. And I've made a lot of telescopes I would euphemistically call a mistake. And they're learning experiences. They've gotten better. So first, what you want is personal. You got to figure out exactly what you want. What are your interests? Are you interested in moon, planets, deep sky objects, SCA objects, nebulous galaxies, or just everything? You're just generally interested. Are you toying with the idea of astrophotography? My first impression thing to tell you, if you are, put it off. As long as you can. It turns observing into a job. But the people that do it love it, and we're going to talk about what telescopes are best for doing astrophotography and that sort of thing. But it's not the focus of what we're talking about. How much time do you realistically have to do observing? A lot of people, I know that fail at getting into amateur astronomy. They said, I'm going to dedicate, like, my weekends are going to be dedicated to astronomy and do it, they pick times when you're going to do it. This is a hobby driven by opportunity. When it's nice out, you go out. When it's not, you sit inside and talk to other people. You don't have a choice of when the scene is going to be good. You have to be prepared to do it and have things staged so that when an opportunity works, when the weather is right, you can get up and go and observe. That's what most dedicated observers do. I keep a telescope in the back of my car. I keep a solar telescope in the trunk of my Jeep. I have 14 telescopes. Most of them experiments. 4 or 5 of them are. I've got everything from a 24-inch down to a 4.5-inch. I use it when I want at a particular time for whatever is available. But I have the ability to react quickly to whatever observing opportunities are available. So I get a lot of time at the eyepiece. Astronomy is, and what we're talking about is maximizing your amount of time actually observing. Not getting ready to observe, not tearing down, but actually trying to actually observe. The more time you build at the eyepiece, the better you get at it, and the more you want to do it. When people fade from the hobby, it's because they'll keep a telescope upstairs in the basement, in the closet. Well, that's not coming out anytime too soon. Keep it where you can use it. Put it in the garage. Put it somewhere where you can easily take it out, use it, pick it up, put it down, go to bed. How much time can you read? That's not what we talk about. Can you travel? Do you have the ability to travel on a moment's notice to go find a dark place to observe? If not, what can you do? Are you willing to travel? What kind of vehicle do you have? Telescopes can get big. My 24-inch telescope, it took a year to design it because it fits like a glove in the back of a Subaru Forester. You had to open the windows to let air out to get this thing in. And it was that tight, you had to move the seats forward. But it fit. And then our one is, how much can you carry? A lot of us are young, some of us are old. And telescopes can weigh a lot. General guide for personal opinion. Heavy is good, light is bad, simple is better than complicated. Telescopes have to survive outdoors in the wind. A lot of people will buy a light telescope. The first one would be something they buy. It's light, it's from the department store, the wind blows. It's easy to carry. and they don't work very well and they end up in the closet. Second one, the mount is the most important part of a telescope. If it's not solid and stable, it doesn't matter how good the optics are, you're never going to be happy. Okay, you have to have a firm foundation on a telescope, regardless of where it is, whether it's small or large. And that's where weight comes in. Heavy is better than light. A light telescope's going to flop around. You can look at an object that's, you're going to have a hard time focusing on it, seeing it, and you're not going to have a good time. A heavy mount is a mount that's going to hold it still, let you see what you want, move around easily, and it becomes a pleasure to use instead of working. The purpose of a telescope is to gather light by the most aperture you can afford. There are people that like refractors. Refractors are gorgeous. They'll buy an astrophysics of like $8,000 and a 6-inch lens. Views them are absolutely beautiful, but they can only see about 100 optics, a couple hundred from this area. If on a dark sky location, you can see more. But you're limited because aperture, you need to gather light to see. And there's a difference between what, there's another thing, there's detecting an object and there's seeing an object. Detecting an object means I see a fuzzy thing. Seeing an object that's a spiral galaxy. You can see structure and idea, and that requires good optics and aperture. And the aperture you need varies from place to place because the light pollution restricts you. A 12-inch telescope in this area is about as good as a 6 or 8-inch telescope in Arizona. Just darker. It doesn't gather as much light, but it also has better contrast because it's in Arizona. So that's another thing, is if you like to travel, you want a telescope you can carry on a plane. Cost does not always equate to value or quality. The best telescope I've ever looked at was made plumbing parts from Home Depot. That's not joke. If you've ever, anybody knows Bob Bungie? He has a 20-inch F6 where he made it out of plywood, a handsaw, and some pipes. And he had, for years, had a 2.5-inch plumbing fixture as a focuser. And the mirror wasn't on a cell, it was on a stack of newspapers. Back in the day when they were invented, that was, hey, you have a 3-inch stack of newspapers and a roper on it to keep it from sliding around, and it worked. And I've seen the best views of some objects through that telescope that haven't been matched by anything. Nice piece. And he takes pride in the fact that it looks like junk. Only buy a telescope from if you're going to buy one from a company specialized in telescopes. Don't buy anything off a random catalog or a retail dealer. If you have, the good news is there are very few problems with telescopes that can't be fixed. Whatever telescope you buy, expect to spend the same amount on accessories. How many people agree with that? Oh, yeah. My eyepiece collection is at least $5,000 on eyepieces. It wasn't as much as the 24 cost And we are not discussing buying your first telescope. It's not your only telescope. Most of the people here, and I think or the observers I know, have more than one. How many people have more than one telescope? There you go. Very seldom you're going to find one telescope that satisfies everything. You have kind of a range, you get a situation, which one you want to grab and use. So it accumulates over time, and you always want more. So it's a vicious cycle. But it's a very cheap hobby because when you go out with a telescope, you go places where you can't spend money. You're not going to a shopping mall. You're going to a park or a mountaintop. So it costs, there's an upfront cost, but over time, it's very, very cheap. Once you get a firmly says it doesn't cost you much more gas. In the refractor world, refractors are very popular because they're the stereotypical telescope that everybody, recognizes. A lens in the front, a long tube, you can sit in the back. In movies where they have Dobsonian telescopes or Newtonian telescopes, they turn them backwards. They put the eyepiece at the bottom and the mirror at the top, and they're looking for, I can see clouds and things. And they're looking at their crotch. Refractors are attractive, and they are good. They have excellent image capability, pinpoint stars, particularly in the affordable ones is the achromatic. Usually it's a classic two-element of flint lens and a crown glass two-element. They tend to be longer focal lengths because it has chromatic aberration to it. At high power and stuff, you get a lot of rainbowing effects on objects because it doesn't. All the colors don't arrive at the same color image plane at the same time. The apochromatics are usually 3-element. Some of them are 2, but they use exotic lens material that resolves the chromatic aberration a lot better, and therefore they can be faster and shorter telescopes and get excellent views. Some of the best images of Jupiter I've ever seen were through Company 7's 6-inch APO. They had it on Jupiter. You looked into it, it looked like the size of a dinner plate. Oh, yeah, it was incredible. Then we have Newtonian refractors. Newtonian, because Isaac Newton invented it, is the first mirrored telescope. Everybody's having trouble with trying to get lensing, get the color out of the lenses on the refractors they had. He invented the Newtonian telescope. It's the simplest telescope. It's a parabolic mirror, diagonal in a tube. That's it. It's the simplest telescope you can get, and it's extremely good design. But Newtonians come in a couple of different form factors. There's what's called a Dobsonian telescope, when you talk about a 24-inch and mine's a 24. 25s. The biggest one I've ever seen is a 40-inch. In the 1950s, that would be a 20-ton telescope. A guy named John Dobson, he's a real piece of work, or was a piece of work. He's a neat, nice guy, but a little quirky. He was a monk, and during World War II, he went as a monk, went to an observatory in San Francisco and saw the stars for the first time. He went on a crusade. Everyone has to see this, so he went about trying to figure out how to make a cheap telescope. So he was going down to war surplus Navy yards and buying porthole glass and figuring out how to grind the mirror out using beach sand. And he worked it out, and he hammered together with his, in his bare feet in monk robes. He put together a Dobsonian box, held it, and it formed images. Not very good, because he didn't know how to grind the mirror very well. But he started a trend, and now the size of telescopes for amateurs is kind of limitless. The biggest one I've heard of is a 70-inch. Yeah, you should see pictures of the guy's garage. And then Newtonians can also go on German equatorial mounts or a tripod. You separate the type of telescope tube, the optics, from the mount. Any tube telescope design where it's a refractor or a reflector can go on any kind of mount. They're two separate things, but they're bundled together. So I'm kind of addressing refractors, Newtonians, and then we come to this other category, apochromatics, which are combined lens and mirror telescopes. Primarily, of which there are dozens of varieties, but the most popular are Schmidt and Matsukas, Castorines. SCTs, Schmidt Cassegrain telescopes are the most popular. We'll talk about those and why they're made. A Newtonian telescope is the simplest design. It has a single mirror and a single flat for the diagonal, but it's a parabolic curve. Manufacturers don't want to make them. You can't mass produce good quality. It's difficult to manufacture good quality parabolic mirrors. It's easier to make a sphere. All these compound telescopes are compromises to put a lens in front of a spherical mirror and get a good image. They succeed. That's why there's so many varieties. But the whole thing is, it's easy to make a spherical mirror. If you rub two pieces of glass together, you're only going to get two shapes that are continuously impacted. It's going to be a flat or it's going to be a sphere. There's no difference. There's no choice. So you can grind a spherical mirror to high tolerances and pretty well, in pretty good quality in a manufacturing environment. That's why Schmidt Cassegrains, you see them all the time, because they're easy to manufacture, so the cost of them. We're going to talk about focal length. What's focal length? F ratio is the size of the aperture, your mirror or lens, and what the focal length is. You divide the focal length by the aperture, you get a number. It's called an F number. It's like if this is 900 millimeters and 102, then it comes out like F 8.8. When you look at Cassegrains and you look at reflectors, they'll always tell you what the F ratio is. It impacts what magnification you get from particular eyepieces. Because when you're talking about magnification, you take the focal length of your telescope divided by the focal length of your eyepiece. So if you have a 900 millimeter telescope and a 25 millimeter eyepiece, you'll get 36 power. Give them that. So when you buy a telescope, you want to buy eyepieces that are going to get you the magnifications you want for the particular types of objects you're looking at. If you're looking at galaxies and nebulas, you're working low power because they're big objects. If you're interested in planets and you have good seeing conditions, you can go up to a couple hundred power to look at Jupiter or something like that. So the eyepieces you want to buy, well, the American telescope are based on the focal length of the telescope. Does that make sense? Exit pupil. Your eye is part of your telescope. That's where your light goes in. If you, and this is a very important number, it's called exit pupil. The average person's eye is 6 millimeters. And that's the size of your lens. Your eye is 6. Mine's 6.5 because I'm big. But it's typically 6, and it gets smaller as you get older. So when you have an eyepiece, you can divide it by the focal length of your telescope, and you'll get the size of the cone of light coming out of the focuser or out of the eyepiece into your eye. If you have a 10-inch telescope and you're looking at through a 32 millimeter eyepiece that gives you 7.1, you're not getting 10 inches of light. You're getting maybe 8 inches of light. You're not getting all the light from your telescope because you want the output from your eyepiece to match, be equal to your eye aperture at your particular age. You can go, when you get your eyes checked next time, just ask your optician to measure. They'll tell you it's somewhere around 6. If you're an average person, you can just assume it's 6. But, so a 32 inch, so if my 24-inch telescope, if I put and that's why I use 4.5. If I put this 32-inch telescope or eyepiece in my 24-inch telescope at 4.5, I'm getting this, and I'm only getting about 20 inches in my 24-inch aperture in light. I'm better off using a 26, which is my largest eyepiece I use, and because I get 5.7. So this calculation, a lot of people will You know, you want to get as much, you want to see and use as much of your telescope as possible. So exit people is an important concept to understand when you're buying your eyepieces and stuff. The other is for field of view. Oh, when you get a eyepiece, a lot of people start out the first eyepieces you'll get is by default now a Plossum. They're good eyepieces. Nothing wrong with a Plossum. They're good for planetary view, and they have a 50-degree field of view. In your 50-degree field of view, if your telescope is at 40 magnification, you divide 40 into the 50, and that's the size. You're going to see 1 1/4 degrees field of view through that eyepiece. So if you're looking at a planet, that's fine. If you're looking at a nebula that's big, well, you're only going to see clouds. So you might want to get an eyepiece that has a bigger, that's where things like a macula comes in, where you get a 100-degree field of view. It's like sticking your head out of a porthole in space. It just fills the whole view. And you'll get 2 or 3 degrees out of that. But this sort of thing is important. Those are the only 3 formulas I'm kind of talking about here, to give you a sense of what you have to think about when you're moving along. Well, the moon is, if you hold up your little finger, little finger is a 1/2 degree. That's the size of the sun. That's the size of the moon. That's why you have eclipses of size. That's a 1/2 degree. That's about 1 degree there. The Andromeda galaxy in the sky is about 6 degrees. It's big. It's big. And I cannot see the whole thing in my 24-inch. I have a rich field 5-inch check. I can see the whole thing. But I have to pan around and look around that. The Orion Nebula is a pretty good size too. It's about 2 or 3 degrees. And there's a context. When you look through an eyepiece that gives you a view like this, it's like looking through a soda straw or a tunnel. When you get the larger eyepieces, which are the wide field, you get, that circle goes away, and when you look at the telescope, you just see sky. That the impact of that is worth the price of the eyepieces. They're very expensive. They're designed they were designed to deal with most of the eyepiece designs from early days were all assuming long focal length telescopes. They've gotten much shorter. In the Dobsonian world, 4.5 is pretty big. They go down to 3 now in some cases. They keep them small. That puts a lot of strain on the eyepieces, so they've had designed special eyepieces that can deal with that kind of telescope. You can buy a new one. You can buy a used one. We have the NOVAC loaner program. There's reputable things like Astromart, which just specializes in selling amateur astronomy. There's a couple other sites that do that sort of thing. You can buy used, buy from someone you know, someone in a club that's trying to sell something. There's always something on the list. Used telescopes are great if the people took care of them. If you can look at it and check it out, it's worth the effort. Or you can do it, I've done most of the time, is build your own. There's nothing in them. They are not complex. You're just trying to hold a mirror and a lens in one place and point it somewhere. Anybody that has an inclination can build a telescope. I've helped lots of members build one. I helped Pedro build his real telescope. So how do you proceed? Come to public observing sessions. You look through other people's telescopes. See what you like. Ask it for advice, talk their arm off. And I mean it, they'll talk your arm off. Borrow telescopes from the loaner program. Check out online resources such as Astromart and stuff that we talked about before. If you're interested in telescope, post something on the listserv to the rest of the members. Hey, what do you guys think? Tell them your opinions. There's a lot of people here that offer a lot of advice. We're going to talk telescope mounts and telescopes a little separately because any type of, you could put a refractor, a Newtonian or a folded optics telescope on any of these mounts. German equatorial mounts come in small sizes. These are affordable ones. They go from $600 up to, on some of these they go up like $10,000 pair of mounts and stuff like that, and $10,000. Why are they so expensive? They're clocks. And this axis is the polar line, North Pole here. You have to go, it's an effort to set them up, but if you're going to do astrophotography, this is going to be probably your best solution for good astrophotography. It's a clock, and it's a clock that can actually rotate with precision with 80 pounds on it. So it's a mechanical beast, very precision gears and stuff in it for tracking, because you need a very stable image that rotates with the Earth. Actually, as the Earth goes this way, it goes that way. It holds. So it's basically, the sky is a clock. And all the objects are noted by hours, minutes, and seconds. The sky is a clock. It's a clock going in the opposite direction, so that it cancels the Earth's movement with respect to your target. It's the way you kept an object on target before you had computers. And it's a very sound, and these are computerized now, so they can go to. Don't buy these if you're someone that's going to go out and observe for a few minutes. You'll never get out of your trunk of your car in a length of time. Down here we have all vantage mounts, which is basically rotation, essentially. You turn, move, and point. They get be computerized, so it can move and track objects as well. They're not good for astrophotography because being they rotate with the Earth, they aren't tracking with the Earth. The objects will rotate in the field of view as it moves. So it's not a solution for astrophotography, but they are good. A Dobsonian mount is actually called as mount. And we have fork mounts. And that's used in SETs a lot. Most of the SETs are the fork mount. The interesting thing, the reason why I say this is different is this way, it's, you can put a wedge on it and turn it into, not a German equatorial, but an equatorial mount. Almost all of these can be computerized these days. Dobsonians, you can put a drive on it, and it's fun to see something 8 feet tall swinging at a speed where you can actually knock people over. Or point to the ground and start digging a hole. You haven't lived till you see a top catch fire in the morning. If you go to star parties and you'll have a dob out, and when the wind blows at night, you leave it so it can, you put a pin in it so it doesn't raise it. It's like fixed at this angle, but will swing like a weather vane in the wind if you get hard wind. A lot of times that wind will blow you to the east and the sun will rise. And you don't have your mirror covered, you see smoldering smoke come out of the tubes. The pros, refractors are small, but easy to carry. You carry them in your trunk if you get a short focal length, particularly in the APO refractor. Acromats, the short focal lengths are usually wide field of view. They work well at low power, but at high power they're not that good. Unless you're up to like F12 or 15 and then you're long. They're closed optics and they're factory built, so there's not a lot of issues. You don't have an alignment problem. Newtonian telescopes, every time you take them somewhere, you have to stop and align the optics and do there with the lasers and stuff. It doesn't take a lot of time, but it's something you have to do to get your optics fine. These things are, unless you drop it on concrete, they're going to stay in pretty good shape. That's what I mean by closed optics factor, view issues, alignment. They give very good views, superior views. One of the things that a lot of people don't understand is when a lens is given a rating of, it's like 12th wave, which is pretty fine. It's actually 12th wave accuracy. A mirror, whatever the wavefront error is, it's, if you're doing peak to valley on a mirror, when you reflect it, doubles the error. So if you get a 8th wave mirror, you're actually getting 4th wave at the eyepiece. So refractors are always going to, if they're grounded at the same precision, are going to give like half the error reflected. There are other issues too, with diffraction versus scatter that you get off reflection. They're very high contrast because there's no central obstruction. All mirror telescopes have a secondary mirror that blocks part of the intake. So it creates a black hole which lowers your contrast. They're excellent for planetary viewing. They're excellent for astrophotography, but for visual use, the aperture limits how many things you can look at. You just don't have, the optics are great, but they're just not big enough to see a lot of other things, particularly in this area. If you go out to Arizona, you'd be amazed what you can see. And then there's a limit called the Dawes limit, which is the bigger the aperture, the smaller you can resolve a point source. So you have double stars that are really close together. A lot of 3 and 4 inch refractors can't separate the two because the diffraction rings merge and it just looks like one blob. Maybe it looked like dumbbells. The more aperture you have, the bigger your aperture, the smaller it can resolve. So that's, and then they're very expensive, cost per inch. But they can be good to have as a second. A lot of people carry around little televiews as travel scopes. Very nice. Refractors here. Here's a short tube achromat. I have actually 2 of these things. Rich field, 30-40 magnification, see star clusters and stuff. It's something I can take out, set up, and use a lot quicker than I can view out 24 inch. These guys, a little more work. This is equatorial mount. If you buy a telescope, if you're not going to do astrophotography, don't buy that kind of one. It's just a lot of work. A lot of times you just put it sideways and kind of turn it into a ball pads. But they are aimed to align and use. Okay. High power requirements require longer focal lengths for achromats. Can suffer from chromatic, that's color distortion. Less portable than APOs are typically shorter and higher quality and much more expensive. Easy to transport, Newtonian or an SCP, limited magnification and aperture. Another thing we haven't talked about, there's a general rule of thumb that highest magnification you can use is like 50 power per inch of aperture. Generally, it's a good rule. In reality, it's more like 30 power per inch, just because of atmosphere and stuff. If it's really dry and calm, it can be better. So a 3 inch, 90 or so, your max is going to be about 300 power, and probably won't be too pleased. APOs usually use ED, lead, or fluoride elements, which is very expensive and hard to grind. Short focal length, make them shorter, finest telescope optics available. particularly for Takahashi and astrophysics and the other guys. Superb imaging for astrophotography, pretty portable. Gen mounts can cost a lot. You get a big APO, that's big. That mount probably costs as much or more than the telescope. Very expensive, over 80 millimeters. Limited capability for visual observing. Excellent for cities and planetary. If you live in a city and you never go out to the country, this is a good solution. So refractors is basically the tube focal length. A Newtonian reflector has a secondary mirror, primary mirror. The light comes in here, bounces off, comes up here, goes eyepiece. This is a catadioptric, which is all it means is combination. You have a lens, because this is a parabolic lens. This is a parabolic mirror. This is a spherical mirror because they're easier to make. So they put correctors on the front diopter. In this case, this is a meniscus, which is concave on one side, convex on the other. And this is a Matsutov Cassegrain in particular. The Matsutov Cassegrains are designed that can actually challenge an APO for image quality. They can be extremely I have one that was Russian made and it's built like a tank. And it takes 4 hours to cool off. That's pretty good. So these folded optic telescopes can do very well. The Schmidt Cassegrain is by far the most popular one. And there's also one called the Schmidt Newtonian, which is basically, instead of having the mirror, it has a longer focal length. And in place of the mirror coming back this way, that's a diagonal on the side. Looks a lot like this with the corrector in the front. You don't see those at all. There's a Ritchie Chrétien, which is a very exotic form of catadioptric. Mead sells one that's, they call her Ritchie, but it's not, and they got pseudo reflective. But it kind of has the same results. And what they did was, all they did was in the secondary mirror, I'll load it back there. I can't go back. In the secondary mirror, which is usually a convex spherical, it's actually aspheres to compensate. So the asphere adjustments for the Ritchie are in the secondary. It's just one little mirror and they charge twice as much as a telescope. Okay, the Newtonians run from desktop like this, small ones. This is the kind that most people will get in a 6 to 10 inch range. They can get super big. This is a 40 inch. And this is the guy that got the telescope here that I've got. And he's a friend. But yeah, he builds a nice telescope. That's not Rainier back. So in a Newtonian size, you have a wide range of things to do. Virtually all of the telescopes I have, a couple refractors. I've got one Matsutov. All of mine are Newtonians going forward, or going from about, I've got like 4 or 5, 4.5 inch that I've built. I've got 2 6s, a 10 inch, and this, and a 12.5 inch in this form, and one in this form for 24. The downside of Newtonians is the optics are not sealed. They're open to the elements, so they can get dusty. Mirrors can get corroded easily. You have to take care of them. You have to clean mirrors. You have to, they take some maintenance. And you have to align them, which you can do with a laser collimator or a set of sight tubes and stuff. It takes maybe a minute when you go set up to actually collimate. Sometimes a little more if you're like this in a loan where you have to run back and forth from the eyepiece back. But Newtonian telescopes suffer from coma. It's not a form of distortion, it's an inherent side effect of a parabolic mirror, where on the outside rim of low power, stars will start to look like little comets. That's why it's called coma. It's not an issue because you can buy a coma corrector, which goes in the telescope and adjusts for it, so you get the totally flat field views from Newtonian. So from my perspective, if I had to choose between what to get, it would be a Schmidt-Cassegrain or a Newtonian. Schmidt's because they're not they're not excellent at some things, but they're good at everything. It's a good all-around telescope. They're short. They take this telescope would be 2 feet long in a Schmidt format, because usually that primary mirror is an f2, and the secondary mirror is a convex lens that stretches it out. So you're getting basically an f12 telescope in an f2 format. Hatchcock Cassegrains have the meniscus, and this is aluminized, and there's your eyepiece. This can be very small because this can be you get even like an F16 or something like that. Not a wide field of view, narrow field of view. Schmidt-Cassegrains can get a wide field of view. But they're pretty interesting. Other components need eyepieces. Eyepieces have 1.5 inches to 2 inch. A lot of the experienced guys will go with 2-inch eyepieces, although a lot of the wide field capabilities that were only available in 2 inches a couple of years ago are now available in 1.25 inches, particularly from Niagara, those guys. So you can have pretty good views from 1.5 inches, but 2 inches is a preference. Kellners have always been around. It's a 3-element lens. They're good in long focal length eyepieces, fairly small field of views, 40 millimeters. Orthographics are noted for a very high contrast planetary view. Colossals seem to be the eyepiece of choice when you start out. They're very good eyepieces. They're good at everything. 50-degree field of view, not as much as you'd like. And Erfels are the first efforts to get into wide field views. Then we have wide field camera views which come out like the Negler line of Canoptics, Ethos and Delos, and need wide field. These are called porthole in space things. It's like you don't even see the ring, you just look at the eyepiece and all you see is stars. It's very impressive. And once you start using them, you kind of get it. That's why I put a $400 eyepiece and a $200 telescope. It makes it fall over because the eyepiece is heavier than the telescope. So that gets in the comments. Filters. Hey. If your planet's Jupiter's up, it's in opposition to Saturn, it's going to be visible pretty soon. It's amazing how many people don't know that although you can buy color filters, we use blue, red, yellow, green filters. They're excellent on planets. On Mars, you can use a red filter and sometimes blue, and you'll start seeing textures and contrasts that you'll never see naked eye. Very subtle colors and stuff that you see. Mars is incredibly difficult observing. It's very subtle shading. Color filters are cheap, and they really do bring the things out in planets. Jupiter works really well with the yellow. You can actually see cloud bands that work there. Very neat, very cheap. Get those. Wideband filters are good. Wideband are designed to cut out sodium frequencies and help cut down light pollution and raise the contrast of the background to the stars. So if you're in a mildly light polluted place, a wideband filter can help you see things you wouldn't otherwise see. Narrowband filters are usually focused on the oxygen band. A UHC has a few other bands that are in there. When you see point a telescope at some of these nebula that you see that have all that kind of delicate, ghostly filaments, you look at them without, you won't even see them in a lot of times. In a big telescope, you'll see them. But you'll put them out like an 8-inch and you won't even see them. You put these in, boom, there. It's absolutely amazing. In 03, really changed the world for observing. Even in light polluted areas, it can do amazing things. Because it cuts down all the wavelength except for 03. So it actually cuts out a lot of light pollution. So it's a very good thing. Color filters is something you'll probably won't get to start, but it's certainly something you want to get as you move along. Other accessories, dew heaters. If you don't compensate for dew, your observing sessions will be very short. Especially around here, especially in the summer. You need a heat source on your optics that are going to keep you from forming. Red flashlights are essential. A table is needed. An observing chair. You will always observe better if you're sitting. If you do this, blood rushes to your head and your eyes bulge and go out of focus. You're not going to see much than if you're sitting in a comfortable position. You're not looking into an eye. Bending over like this it's not a good thing to walk around that way. It's bad for you because the blood goes forward in your head. Your eyes are liquid. It's not good. You see much better sitting in a comfortable position where you can look. And if you start doing planetary observing and nebulas and stuff, you'll look at this for a few minutes. A lot of experienced observers will look for hours because as you go, more detail starts coming out and on some of these complex objects. We spent a lot of time looking at Bob Bungie when he observes Mars. He looks at it for like 4 hours a day, taking sketches and stuff. Because the more time you spend and look, the more you see. That's where what's his name saw Canale. Percival Lowell. He started seeing the veins in his eyes transposed on Mars and translated into Canale. Because he was probably doing this. He'd be seeing. Yeah. And warm clothing. Astronomy is a sedentary activity. You're standing still a lot. You are not going to wear enough clothes in those situations because you aren't generating heat. Wear twice as much as you think you need. You can always take it off, but in cold weather, you're not running in place. You're going to get cold. That is, yeah. You saw